few days ago, I asked which technique you'd like me to focus on this week, and lots of you said watercolour. So over the next 5 days, I have 5 clean and simple card making videos for you, all featuring watercolour. Hello crafty friends, welcome to the first day of Watercolour Week. Today I'm using the wet on dry technique to create a love themed card. Here are the supplies I'll be using. I have Canson 100% cotton cold pressed watercolour paper, my Mungyo professional watercolours and my Pro Art Masterstroke brushes. If you'd like me to go into more detail about choosing watercolour supplies, let me know and I'll do a separate video for you. But you should be able to achieve this week's cards with whatever you already have. For my first card, I'm going to paint a heart. And before I paint, I often draw lightly in pencil just to have some kind of guideline. And with shapes like hearts, I also like to use templates. So all I've done here is folded a piece of paper in half, drawn half a heart, then cut it out with scissors and flapped it open to form the full heart. Then I laid down my heart template on my watercolour paper and drew lightly around it in pencil. Sometimes I leave my pencil marks and sometimes I erase them with a putty rubber. It just depends on the particular piece. Before putting paint to paper, I like to mix my paints on my glass palette with water so that I can get them to the desired consistency. With watercolour, usually you want very runny paint. You want it to be like skimmed milk, I think, because really you're not painting with paint, you're painting with water that happens to have paint in it. That's a really helpful way I find of thinking about it. Get your paint nice and runny and then it will flow nicely on the paper. So I've chosen 4 colours. They're all reds and pinks because this is a heart. And I got them all ready to go at the start, so I don't waste any time mixing colours while I'm trying to paint. That's another helpful thing I find, is to have all the colours you think you're going to need ready to go so that you can work as quickly as possible, because with watercolour a lot of the time you want to work wet in wet, which is where you add wet paint onto wet paint or into wet paint or water, and obviously you don't want the paint on your paper drying before you've been able to add the paint that you want to add into it, if you see what I mean. But for this heart, I just wanted to do some raggedy stripes across the heart to form the heart shape with the colours bleeding into one another. So I'm using a wet on dry technique to get the stripes down on the page, and then it's a kissing technique where you kiss one colour into another colour. You'll see what I mean as I go down the heart. When I add my next colour, I make sure it touches the previous colour in one place, and that allows the colours to bleed into one another and spread down the page in a really natural, organic way. And you get this lovely blend as you go. So I alternated the colours down the heart, and so I've got some deep reds and some bright pinks and pretty much everything in between. This technique is very simple, but it's not necessarily easy. It does take a bit of practice to get the paint consistency right, to work at an appropriate speed, to dab up extra pools of paint that you don't want. But it's worth practicing and it's worth persevering, because you do get really beautiful results. So once I was happy with my painting, all I did was let my heart dry, and then I erased the pencil lines, which came up really easily. And then I mounted this panel onto a card blank that was 4 by 6 inches approximately, and made from ivory linen textured cardstock instead of white. And I chose ivory because watercolour paper tends to be quite an off-white colour most of the time, and when you put off-white panels on a white card it can look a bit jarring. So I like to use ivory card panels when I'm using watercolour paper because they suit each other quite well. And for a sentiment, all I did was cut the word love out of gold foil card and stick it on the front. And that is this very simple, very clean watercolour card finished. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, do subscribe, leave a thumbs up, let me know what you think of the finished card, and I will see you back here tomorrow for day 2 of Watercolour Week. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.